From the Back for the Attack release, that is Dockin' with Burnin' Like a Flame. And next Saturday, Chris, you will be having a co-hostess along with yourself.
I will. Miss Steffi will be joining me for the evening. She's all pumped up about doing it.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I'll be in Toledo, not far from you. I'll be about 120 miles west of you for the big show in Toledo.
You will be rocking with Dockin', so they say.
Yeah. Well, I was emailing back and forth with Dawn, and next Friday, this coming Friday, rather, it's John Levin's birthday.
Oh, that's fun.
So we'll be going out to dinner for John's 50th.
Very nice.
You believe John is 50 years old?
Yeah.
He still looks like a kid.
John? Like that John? God, I thought he was about 20.
Yeah, John Levin.
He's about 22.
Yeah, 50.
He does look young. He looks very young. Of course, I can't imagine that it costs about $1 a day to feed that fucking little scrawny guy.
Yeah, he's a little guy, but man, he can shred.
Oh, he can play guitar like a motherfucker, but I'll bet you his grocery bill's about $30 for 6 months.
No kidding.
I mean, what do you think he weighs legitimately? 130 pounds?
I was going to say dead on 130.
I mean, he is the littlest guy I've ever seen for an adult man.
Yeah.
He is little, man.
You ever notice most musicians are a lot of musicians are very small?
Yeah, they're short.
Yeah, they're short. They're little, but they're very powerful, especially like singers. Like Bruce Dickinson is a little guy. Dio is a little guy. Danzig's a little guy.
Yeah, a lot of them are little, small guys.
But boy, they can sing.
Well, that's it. You know what? They probably got beat up as kids a lot, so they, needed to, it's that whole thing, like, the guy with the small dick that buys the fancy car.
Right.
They're just trying to get more attention. So the singers, they're little in stature, so they got to have the big giant voice.
Sure.
To get the chicks.
Yeah.
Look, you're right. A lot of singers that we know are little.
Yeah, Kendall Peters got it. Udo.
Yeah, Udo's a little dude too. Yeah.
John Bush.
Yeah, well, John Bush isn't that short. John Bush is probably, I mean, he's not tall, but he's probably a good 5'6".
Yeah.
7. Yeah, and he looks taller next to Scott Ian, who's, 5'1" on a step stool.
Right.
That's a little guy. Scott Ian, he's a little small guy.
Yeah. Well, it's good to see our good friend Bob Nalbandian in the chat room.
Yeah, if you say so.
All right. You know what? Bob's going to put you in his documentary, so you better,
When it happens, then he'll be my favorite guy ever.
Yeah.
Until then, he's just another shit talker.
Wow. Talk about my friend Bob like that.
Whatever. He was my friend that you poached initially. I poached most of your friends, but that's one that you poached from me.
Yeah, me and Bob broke bread at the Rainbow.
See, that's it. You saw the opportunity and you just flew out there to steal my friend. I know how this works.
Yeah, you're right about that. Hail and kill caller, you're on the air.
Yes, this is Jim calling for Wendell.
Hey, Mr. Jim Purgatorio, what's going on?
What's going on is the right question to ask. How you doing?
Very well. For those of you who don't know, this is a friend of mine, Jim. And Jim was going to go out to the Trump rally that got canceled in Chicago last night.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So did you make it out there, Jim? And give us a report. Be the best road reporter you can be. So you headed out and you were going to go to the Trump rally. So take us there and tell us what happened.
Well, it was supposed to begin at 6 o'clock. We got there about 5:15, and the line was about 2.5 miles long around the block. So it was getting pretty chilly, and we were in line. And while we were in line, there were a couple of, I don't want to call them confrontations, but there were words exchanged from people that were in line and protesters walking by. But for the most part, just some words that were, less than positive, and in some cases they shouted back and forth. But at that point in time, we were quite optimistic that we'd make it inside and see the Donald and enjoy the show and But as we got closer to the front door, then there was more confrontation, and I don't mean physical, but shouting back and forth and so on. And then we heard that some people come bounding out of the UIC pavilion saying it's canceled. Actually, the word they used was it's postponed.
Okay.
We're scratching our heads asking, what the heck does postpone mean? I mean, that mean we're going to wait an hour and get back in, or what? So, as it turned out, and they made it clear to us that the rally was canceled. So now what we have is we've got protesters on the street, and we've got people in line that were mostly supporters of Donald Trump. And there was some now back and forth going on that was a little more intense. But because what I did is, when we got home, we put it on TV, and they were showing films, and the real activity that was happening was inside the venue. And there were some confrontations, physical, some fist fights took place, nothing out of the ordinary. It wasn't a full-scale riot by any means.
Sure.
But there was some bitterness and some people that were getting quite upset, both the people that were protesting and the Trump people.
Well,
so that was pretty much it.
Who would you say were the aggressors, Jim? Who do you think were the aggressors? Were the Trump supporters the aggressors, or were the protesters the aggressors, or was it pretty equal from what you witnessed?
Well, what was happening is when we were in line, the protesters, of course, were shouting different things negative about Trump. And they had signs, of course, that were not flattering for Trump. And the people in the lines would yell some comments about, well, go get a job, or you guys don't know what you're talking about. Why don't you just leave us alone? And there was that kind of back and forth going on. So I think the protesters were there because they object vehemently to Trump's positions on everything from immigration to other positions that he's taken on whether it's the wall, Mexicans, the way he's conducting himself on the debates as far as talking about hands and the size of your hands and the implications there and so on. So I think what we were faced with is you had protesters saying, we don't think that you're a worthy candidate for president, and we want everybody to know that we don't buy your act, and we're going to let everybody know that that's the way we feel. And the protesters had a perspective that said, hey, look, we're supporting Trump. We've got a right to support him. And if you come in and try to have some commotion while our rally is going on, you're going to pay the price. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if that tells you, who the aggressors were. I think each of them had a very strong position. And it was just, I think, set up to likely have the kind of issues that they had. And the other thing that I'll share with you that we found out who got home and watched it on TV, Trump had made a statement that he met with the police after a few of these altercations happened inside the venue. And he and the police and the Secret Service made the decision that it was not safe to go on with the rally. But subsequently, what we found out is in reports from the Chicago police, and I mean the top brass were on TV talking about, what the exchange was. And they told Donald Trump, we've got everything under control. You could go on with this rally, and we've got enough experience, enough security to not have anybody's lives in jeopardy or anybody's physical well-being will not be jeopardized. But what Trump insisted, and I watched him, he was in Ohio today, and he insisted that the police were part of the decision. And I mean, that's a pretty important gap in what each side of the story is saying, because if the police were saying, we're okay, go ahead with it, and Trump says, no, we're not going ahead with it, I guess I have to ask why Trump would have taken that position, unless either of you guys have heard something different than what I just described.
No, I mean, I would have to wonder. Trump just doesn't want to have somebody beaten or killed at one of his events. I know that's really what it is, and unfortunately, it's going to come to that. Somebody's going to, these guys get more and more rowdy and more violent. Somebody's going to take a beating. Somebody's going to take a real beating at some point. And it might be, I'm not saying which side will lay it out there. Both sides are asking for it, quite frankly. At least from what I see, watching the various reports or whatever, it doesn't look to me like one side or the other is overly peaceful or overly anything. It looks like both sides want to fight. And you know what? Good. I maybe I'm the radical here. I probably am, but I say let the violence happen. That's what Trump should do. He should let them beat each other to death, and then we can thin the herd a little bit and have a more genuine election. Let people be afraid to run their mouth the way they're doing it. That's what I say.
Yeah, but it's going to lead into something that is going to be even more extreme violence, it appears. And I don't know if you were watching the Ohio rally today, but supposedly at the end of that rally, there were some protesters or anti-Trump people that rushed the stage.
Yeah, I saw the Secret Service rush up there and get on all four sides there,
Right.
Take that guy out.
Right. And Trump immediately turned to the audience and says, look, I could have taken these guys out, but I'm going to let the Secret Service do it. But more importantly, I mean, again, another incident I think of an escalation of this kind of distaste that each side has for itself. And like you said, Chris, it's just a matter of time before something occurs. And all the pundits today were talking, well, what happened at UIC last night, was that a good thing or a bad thing for Trump? And most of them said it was probably a good thing, because people made an interpretation that his First Amendment rights were violated because he couldn't speak at this rally, but he's the guy that called it off. And your First Amendment rights don't have anything to do with people shouting at each other. It has something to do with the government telling you you don't have a right to speak. So there's some gray area here that I think has to be sorted out. But I mean, that's the way I saw it last night, and from what I learned today, that I'm sharing with you.
Sure. No, well, and your First Amendment right does not guarantee you safety. Let's just be honest. It's not a safe world out there, and it shouldn't be. I know I always come off like the radical guy here, but I feel like that. I personally feel like everybody should have a little bit of fear about everything. You can certainly say whatever you want to say, but you got to be ready for somebody to come at you even harder than you're coming at them with what you say. If that involves getting smacked in the mouth or whatever, so be it. Now rushing the stage, that's a different story. If somebody's rushing the stage, the Secret Service should have laid them down. Secret Service should have shot them with rubber bullets and laid them down, and send a message that that's not going to be tolerated. You can't tell a presidential candidate, even if you hate their views, that they can or cannot preach what they're trying to preach. That's no different than trying to shut down a church of any denomination or anything else from preaching whatever the hell their message is. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, and I think the people that disagree have a right to disagree, obviously, but at some point, I mean, there's got to be some saner heads have to prevail, and neither side needs to go to that level, even though they certainly, there's the potential to do that, but I don't think that's serving any purpose for them both to be on edge like this, just waiting for something to explode.
Sure. Well, were you nervous at all, Jim? I mean, was there an air of unrest around you? Were you a little concerned at all, or did you just kind of go with the flow, or what was it?
Yeah, what happened, Wendell, is because when we were outside and we never got inside, there were people that got there early enough, and there was a problem inside the pavilion, and the people that were inside probably had some concern about what it might escalate into, but we had no idea anything was going on, and there was nothing outside. We were probably outside for an hour and a half, and there was not a trace of any violence and any kind of concern that we had for our safety or anybody that was in line. We didn't learn about what happened inside until we got home and turned the TV on, and Fox News and the local Chicago stations had the confrontations on tape and showed that. And the other thing that we noticed was they kept showing the same tape over and over again. And a couple of people commented that they thought that these stations were trying to make it a bigger issue and a more dangerous confrontation than it really was.
Sure.
It was just a handful of people, apparently, that threw some fists and pushing and so on. In fact, I think I saw somebody get hit in the face, and that got broke up pretty quickly. But it was no major kind of West Side Story fight that was taking place. It was calmer than that. But, Wendell, in answer to your question, we had no idea what was going on and never feared for our safety, except the way they blocked the streets off when they shut the thing down. It was difficult at times to get around some of the barriers, but we never felt that something was going to happen and we were unsafe. And keep in mind, that's 2 blocks from my house. So it wasn't like, we were going to be put in a position where we didn't know which way to turn and so on. And, we walk up and down those streets all the time.
Right. Well, it wasn't anything like the 1968 Democratic Convention, was it, Jim?
Well, no, it's funny you should say that, because my sister texted me, and she lives in Denver, and asked that very question. She said, are you there? And is it anything like 1968?
So people weren't chanting "the whole world's watching" or anything like that?
Yeah, not even close.
Okay.
Not even close. No.
Right.
No.
Well, I'm glad. Go ahead.
There's a lot of suspicion on the people that are protesting. For example, why would Trump even have this as a venue? I mean, it's a college kids. Most of them are more left-wing than right-wing. And, I mean, it's in a neighborhood that in the general area, there's a fair number of Hispanics. And not too far from UIC is a whole neighborhood of Hispanic people. And we saw a fair number of them with signs and so on. And the point that I wanted to make is that if Trump wants to have a rally, I mean, there was a rally that Bernie had last night. I'm sorry, and it was in a suburb of Chicago, and somebody else was in Naperville, a affluent suburb in Chicago, in the Chicago area. Why pick UIC, or is he looking for a fight?
Well, maybe it's the attitude. Let's take the fight to the people instead of avoiding it. Who knows? And maybe again, I don't know, Jim. All these things are very calculated. Maybe it was a calculated move to do it in that area and then pull out at the last second. You know what I'm saying? Maybe it's just another political stunt. Who knows?
Well, that's what people are speculating on, and it's something that certainly can be considered as a possible motive.
Yeah. Well, anyway, whatever's working for Trump, it's working, and you took an active interest in it and headed out there for yourself to see it for yourself, or whatever it is that you did see or participate in, and that was pretty cool.
It really was. We're glad we went, but we would have really enjoyed to be inside the venue and just be part of all that goes on at his rallies, because I mean it's show business or whatever you want to call it, reality TV, but we thought we'd want to experience that, and that was our motivation.
Sure. Well, if Trump reschedules somewhere in the city, will you go?
No.
No?
No.
Okay. All right, Jim. Well, I know that this is probably your first time listening to us live, so what's your take on the Classic Metal Show?
Well, I can't give you an opinion just yet, but I've heard enough excerpts from the kind of exchanges you have with people calling in that Wendell plays on and off, and you deserve to be listened to, and I think I'm going to take up Wendell on doing a few podcasts and listening to the banter back and forth, because it's not boring.
All right, excellent. All right, well, we're going to talk about the high murder rate in Chicago here next, Jim. So if you want to just keep tuned in, check out our take on that.
I may call back in
if you want to, if you feel compelled.
Right, the new Tim James.
All right, guys.
All right, talk. Jim.
Bye-bye.
Hail and kill.
Bye-bye.
Whatever. Don't know that part yet.
He's not hip to the hail and kill yet.
Not down with that yet. I don't understand.
Yeah. So yeah, Jim headed out to the rally, obviously, and he's not a Trump supporter per se, but he went out just for his own edification, I guess you want to call it.
Yeah, and he's not a big intimidating type of a guy either. So hey, good on him.
Yeah, no kidding.
I met him, right? I met him at your.
Yeah, you did. You met him.
Yeah. So yeah, he's not a guy that you would expect to go out there looking for a problem.
No, not at all.
No, just mild-mannered guy. So hey, good on him.
Yeah, look at Nathan in Kentucky putting up our campaign.
Yeah, there it is. Neeley Aiken. Hey, America, fuck you, pal. I like it.
Right.
I like it.
There you go.
I think that's what it is. Don't you?
I do believe.
Yeah, we're missing out on our true calling as the campaigners.
Sure.